What's up, y'all? It's your boy Sean P back again with another edition of Hip Hop Roundtable Reviews. Let me get my hat right. I tilt my hat right for tonight. But anyway, yeah, we've been having a lot of hot topics in hip hop of late. You know, a lot of interesting hot new albums came out, clips, Raekwon. We're gonna get to Tyler probably this weekend. I want to give it a little bit more time to listen to. But the hip hop year is heating up. Alfredo 2 is gonna drop on Friday. So we got that coming to look forward to, which we're definitely gonna get to in our review segments. But anyway, a lot of hot topics been going on. We've heavy been on the Nas saga and Nas Jim Jones for a while, so we're gonna segue from that and we're gonna go to Jay Z now. So tonight I came uh, discovered a new post today on According to Hip Hop. Shout out to Mike D and all the crew over According to Hip Hop. Shout out to the Weekend Roundup, all those guys. And I thought it was very interesting. And it actually kind of spoke to a little bit of a back and forth that I had this weekend about Jay Z in my Facebook group, Hip Hop Roundtable Presents the Review. And basically, one of our members, one of our real dedicated members who has been with us for man over a decade now, my homie Glice. Shout out Marcus, my homie Glice, who also raps too. Um, he brought up an interesting point about Jay Z being washed. You know, and I said, washed? How is Jay Z washed? Like, yeah, he just walked off in what 2022, 2023 with one of the best verses of that year on God Did, you know. But, I try to take a look at it and be objective about it. I say, I don't know how the dude is washed, you know what I mean? But he has been inactive. He hasn't put out an album in over since 2017. Hasn't been on a feature project since 2020 and has been a feature verse artist very infrequent until then. And I try to see, all right, what is that effect on hip hop? What is that effect on him and his hip hop legacy, And it really started to bring me to really thinking, is it starting to affect his place in hip hop history, his GOAT status? Given in the last 5 years, Nas has had a monster run. I mean, he's put out 6 albums in over 5 years, you know what I mean? With a lot of critical acclaim and winning him a Grammy, you know what I mean? Of course, hip hop has been overshadowed with the Drake Kendrick beef from last year. J. Cole is coming to prominence as being one of the top MCs. You had really the big three era, really, in the 2020s. And has Jay Z gotten lost in the shuffle because of his inactivity? So we're going to take a look at a video from the According to Hip Hop crew and Mike D today. And we're going to do our usual, critique of that. And we're going to see if there are any valid points, if Jay-Z's inactivity has caused him to kind of lose his place in the hip hop infrastructure right now. Like, where is his place in history as far as GOAT status is concerned? And then I'm also going to address, is he really being washed? Is he washed at this point? And address, well, he really should have been on that Clips album. So let's talk about it. So let's start with Mike D. And According to Hip Hop, I will share my screen right now and let's go.
Mike D here, checking in with you guys, man. I wanted to forge a question. I wanted to forge this question, and I'll give you the context of where this question came from. I want to ask, does Jay Z being inactive musically, we're talking about album releases, does that hurt his legacy with the current generation of hip hop artists? Not artists, excuse me, fans, the hip hop audience, the current generation, the younger audience, you know? I mean, we think about it. It's been how many years since 444? We're in 2025 right now, and 444 dropped in 2017. That's 8 years, man. We're going on 10 years since 444. And all
So I want to stop it right there, because he highlighted 444 as Jay Z's last project. But that's not all exactly true. I mean, Everything Is Love came out with as the Carter's album with Beyonce that followed up with a very big tour and a worldwide tour with his wife Beyonce, of course, 2018, and got a lot of critical acclaim. And also 2020 also came with a Written Testimony with Jay Electronica, which was his solo album, but really was a Jay Z album. Jay Z smoked him on his own album, literally. You know what I mean? And Jay Z needed that to get his kind of album out there, and that was Jay Electronica's debut album. So Jay Z actually had to give him an assist, to carry his album. Then of course he's had plenty of feature verses from Meek Mill, What's Free, to on DJ Khaled. He had a couple of verses, one with Nas, of course. Also had feature verses on Pusha T's album with A Neck and Wrist, Pharrell producing. You know what I mean? I mean, he's been active, but I don't like the narrative of, well, 444 was his last real project because that was his last critically acclaimed project that was borderline classic, and he's going to have some opinions about 444 in a minute, what I'll get to. But people are talking like that's the last time Jay-Z ever rapped, and that's not accurate. Last time he really was active, Jay-Z, I would say, was 2022, which still was about 3 years ago. Maybe 2023 he had a feature here and there, but he really hasn't been active for 2 years. You know what I mean? So I just want to clear that up as far as that's concerned. But let's keep it moving.
though many people love 444, I'm not a huge fan personally, and I want to be, frank. I'm a huge Jay Z fan, and I'm gonna get into that in a second too. But yeah, 444 just wasn't an album that had a bunch of records that stuck with me, and I think over time we've seen that is as cool as 444 may have been for many, it's not like a lot of records carried over where we could actually say that they belong on a Jay Z's greatest hits or some of his better works or things of that nature. And let me know if I'm wrong.
You're wrong, dude. Story of OJ is still a classic Jay Z song. I think it's a top 25 Jay Z song. I think some of the songs like Legacy on there. I think the song with Damian Marley also. He has a couple of other joints on there that I think are standout Jay Z records. I think what's the song with him and Beyonce? Family Feud. That's the one joint. Family Feud is on there. I named 5 or 6 records. I mean, I got the song playing in my head right now. Family Feud and 444 is another one. You know what I mean? Also Marcy Me. And remember, 444 was only 10 songs. So I mean, he has some really good songs, really songs with a lot of layers and depth and introspection to them. You know what I mean? So I totally, totally disagree with him. 444, if anything, has aged well as an album over time, as opposed to aged poorly. This is one of the gems of Jay Z's catalog, if anything. So I totally disagree with his stance on that. So yeah. I'm telling you, you're wrong, Mike.
You know? But anyway, it's been 8 years since that. And then before that, we got Magna Carta Holy Grail. Before that, we got the Blueprint 3. The Blueprint 3, we're dating all the way back to 2009. Blueprint 3 is 16 years ago. American Gangster is 18 years ago. Um, and to me, I think that that's probably his best, most recent work. American Gangster. Personally, I thought American Gangster was brilliant. It was Jay in Jay's pocket. I think it was a grown up version of what we got with Reasonable Doubt. It was like the guy from Reasonable Doubt that actually got out. It was almost like a sequel, an unofficial sequel. I think the Blueprint 3 has some high marks to it too. To me, that is the last time that he sounded like the Jay-Z that, I became a fan of. Saying all that to
Okay, so let me stop him there. And just to let you know, Mike has an opinion about Jay Z that I totally disagree with. He thinks that Kanye West made Jay Z post Blueprint, and Kanye West was the artist that propped up Jay Z and carried Jay Z through the rest of his career, outside of his start from when he was really the king of hip hop, from I would say 99 to about 2001. You know what I mean? You could go further than that. He said Jay Z, which I totally agree. So I think, in my opinion, I think Mike kind of downplays Jay Z a lot. And just to address some of his commentary on that, he left out Watch the Throne, which Watch the Throne was the biggest album, I would say, in 2011. Watch the Throne was an experience. You know what I mean? With Jay Z at his height, Kanye West at his height, fresh off of My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, this was this was the height, I think, the peak of Kanye West. But you can't leave out Jay Z. Jay Z had some verses on there that just mopped the floor with the competition. And that was 2011 he's leaving out. I do agree with him on his American Gangster stance. And that album also aged well. You know, I think an album that, believe it or not, has aged well is Blueprint 3. So, I mean, despite Jay Z being inactive, I do think that his catalog actually has gotten stronger with those late 2000s works. You know what I mean? Now, Magna Carta Holy Grail was Jay's turn up phase, kind of. It was more of an up tempo, uh, you know, kind of a. He tried to make a stadium rap album, and it kind of fell short. I do agree, it kind of fell short, but I mean, Holy Grail. Um, what's the one with Rick Ross? Fuck with me, you know I got it. He had bangers on there, boy. He had bangers on there, and really, that was kind of the birth of the Carters. He has a song on there with Beyonce that I think what is it, Bonnie and Clyde Part Two or something like that. That was pretty dope. Um, I think Mike's selling him short. You know what I mean? I think he's trying to downplay how great his catalog really is. You know what I mean? And you got to give him props for his collab albums, especially Watch the Throne. That was, I mean, and I've gotten in debates with people in Hip Hop Roundtable presents the review as they try and downplay Magna Carta, not Magna Carta, Holy Grail, but Watch the Throne. So I just want to say I just don't think he gives his catalog due respect, and he leaves out some important parts like Watch the Throne and how much uh, an impact that album had as making Jay a rock star in this game. So let's continue.
say though, it's a long time ago for a fan that's 25 years old. And I want to speak to the younger audience here too. And maybe the the audience that is in my age bracket that came up in the 90s can speak on this as well. I think that when you hear young people say things like Jay-Z's overrated, I think there's a relatability there where they don't relate to, him, his stories and things of that nature. But most of that is just being removed, right? They weren't there. If you were there in Jay-Z's prime and when Jay-Z was running shit, and I would say honestly, from volume 2 to the Black album, I would say 98 to '03. Jay was on top of his game. Everything was hot. Features were hot. He was on his
That's right.
square, like, you know what I'm saying? The rhymes was coming like this. He was giving you a hit every single year, where many of his peers were dropping albums every 2 years. He would have a hit on a soundtrack. He was everywhere, and he was always giving 100% when it came to, you know what I'm saying, his bar work. It took nothing for him to just go in the booth. We've heard these historic stories about how he would go in the booth 15 minutes, no pen, no pad, and then come out with a classic. Now, I mean, and again, I've heard that story when it came to the Blueprint, how quickly he recorded that. He recorded
Now that's true. That was Jay's hot period. I would say from '98, where he kind of took the mantle from DMX, you know, all the way to '03. I would say he was the undisputed king of hip hop, except for that short period of time between uh, right after '01 to '03 when Nas came with Ether. I think for that year into '02, I think Nas was the king. You know what I mean? Took the crown from Jay. And then I think once, um, I would say, I think after Ether, just doing a little bit of a Jay-Z history lesson here. I think after, um, I would say after that period where I believe it's when Crazy in Love dropped, Beyonce's big single. That was Jay Z's kind of big moment to come back. That was when the comeback started. At that time, 50 Cent was pumping. You know what I mean? He was just crushing shit right then with Get Rich or Die Trying. But once Crazy in Love dropped, and then all of a sudden the Black album came, and I do think when Jay came with the quote unquote mid career retirement. He had a mid career. He had an intermission in his career. I call it the Jay Z intermission, where after Black Album, he stepped away until Kingdom Come came in, I believe, 2006. Um, that was Jay Z's peak. That was Jay Z's peak. You know what I mean? That was the classic era of hip hop. That was probably the peak of hip hop ever. I would say that 2000 to about 2003 period was probably the best years of hip hop, where everybody sold records. You know what I mean? Everybody was putting out classics. Everybody was creative, and you got styles from all over. You got styles from Atlanta and the South. You got styles from the Midwest with Common and Kanye West. You got Kanye West came a little bit later in '04. I'll probably say 2000 2005 was that period. You know what I mean? You had G Unit rocking, D Block. Um, Atlanta was still big with Jeezy and Ti came out and Ludacris, and then Midwest with Common, and then Kanye came in the game, and then you had Eminem with putting really Detroit on the map and putting the lyrics to the forefront. That was probably the golden years of hip hop. Just reminiscing a little bit about Jay Z and the classic Jay Z era, and how younger hip hop fans never really lived that. You have to live that and live that experience to really know that. In that period of time, saw Jay Z 3 times in concert, and it was an epic experience. I mean, he came out, it was like God walked out on the stage. He literally, just as an aside, right? I went to Summer Jam 2005. Jay-Z came out to do PSA, and right before PSA came out, Jay-Z just looked at the crowd and stared at the crowd for a solid minute. Then he just raised his hand and pointed over at this area and said, "You guys, you know, you know, uh, get rowdy, right?" And they started screaming. Then he lifted his hand over here and said, "You guys, get loud." Crowd started screaming. It was literally like God walked out on stage, and it was an epic moment. I'll never forget that moment. That's one of the moments I always remember in my life, definitely in hip hop history. But anyway, I digress about the golden age of Jay-Z when he was at his peak. But let's get to what Mike is saying about younger hip hop listeners and their relationship with Jay-Z.
The bulk of the blueprint in a week's time.
Yes, absolutely. For it gives you the flexibility to work from anywhere you want, at your own pace, on your own.
All of those things are historic, and those are things that we were there for. But I do believe that to the current generation, being this idle, and when you do show up, on a feature or, even come with an album, even though it's been 8 years, the younger generation isn't as impressed. We're in an era of volume, right? And I think when you're inactive, it does affect how people view you now, and younger people, because none of these things are a part of their time. They'll have that excuse to say, look, that's before my time. I was looking.
Yeah, and I want to speak to that. So this is where I kind of want to say that Jay-Z's at a disadvantage. See, what I've learned in the last year in hip hop is that, as Mike says, it is a volume era. Younger hip hop fans don't really listen to albums like that. All younger hip hop fans care about is you put out a whole bunch of songs where you're gonna have at least 4 or 5 hits in a select period of time, and songs that chart, songs that bang on the radio, songs that are catchy, and they really want to see more volume of work. Like, I'll just give you as an aside, like when the Kendrick beef started, the Kendrick and Drake beef, there were really fans who thought that Damn was Kendrick Lamar's first album. There were fans that did not know about Good Kid, Mad City or To Pimp a Butterfly, which floored me. And the reason being is, I mean, not so much Good Kid, Mad City, but To Pimp a Butterfly really wasn't a radio album. It had some songs on there, maybe All Right, but All Right was more of a hip hop anthem than a radio club banger. And that was more of a conscious project. You know what I mean? So it's almost like I noticed younger hip hop fans deducted points from Kendrick Lamar, didn't give him points. It really was not until Kendrick Lamar came with GNX and had a bunch of radio bangers that the new generation started to give Kendrick his respect as a hit maker. That floored me. But see, that's the problem with the younger generation of hip hop fans and why you see the divide. And I'm going to explain a little bit why Jay should come back, because now there's a market for him, because there's starting to be a shift in hip hop listeners right now. But I think younger hip hop fans really are people that don't care about listening to albums anymore. And not only that, they don't do their research. If you didn't drop literally in the last 4 years, it's almost like it never happened. Like, seriously. Like, even stuff like Drake, even his old shit, they don't even recognize. You know what I mean? They wouldn't even know what Thank Me Later was. You know what I'm saying? That's how it is with younger fans. And it's really their problem more than Jay-Z's problem, but it does require a reintroduction to people. See, at least you can say Nas in the last 5 years was very active. And even though a lot of his songs doesn't resonate with younger hip hop fans, they'll say, all right, well, Nas put out 5 albums and maybe he had some joints we can listen to here and there. But Jay-Z hasn't put out an album in 5 years. So this is where he's at a disadvantage. But we'll go on with what Mike is talking
Looking at
about.
this video where young lady, I wish I knew their names, man. She was interviewing some baseball players that play for HBCUs. I think it was an HBCU All-Star uh, thing, and they were coming out to Atlanta for the All-Star game, the baseball All-Star game that happened. And they were just showing random pictures of Atlanta legends. And these college-age students didn't know who Outkast was. Put the picture up there. A couple of them knew who Andre 3000 was. They didn't know who Big Boy was.
That's crazy. That's crazy. But that just shows how, and honestly, I think that's a disrespect to really music culture because, and hip hop music, because I don't care what age you are, like the, I'm going to say, I would say suburban white American culture, like kids who are in their 20s, they know who Led Zeppelin is. They know who the Beatles are. They know who Bon Jovi is. They know who's another classic group. They know who Metallica is. You know what I mean? But with hip hop, it's like the only genre of music where if you don't reinvent yourself every 3 to 5 years and reintroduce who you are, it's going to be a problem. You know what I mean? And that's crazy how that really dynamic works only in hip hop. That's crazy.
Um, and again, that's due to inactivity. When the host was like, you don't know Miss Jackson and this thing, like, man, I was born in '04. And it's funny that, I mean, and this is gonna take me down a rabbit hole, and I'm gonna come right back around, but it's funny, man. When we first embarked on the digital era and streaming, me as a music fan, I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, like, yo, this is great, man. Like, we're gonna have access to catalogs that we didn't have access to,
That's right.
before. You have to go in a record store and spend thousands of dollars to get, what you're able to get from streaming platforms. But what we did miss, I didn't foresee this. When we were coming up, man, I couldn't escape my father playing James Brown. I couldn't escape my parents' record collection. I was going through my parents' record collection. When it was jam out sessions or whatnot, we were listening to music together. We would have Friday jam sessions or whatnot. My parents would put on their records, and I would know these records. I would know these artists. I would know these songs because my parents played them. I would see them. I could touch them. I could touch the records rather, and it was visible. It was there. You had your parents' catalog. And for the people who came up in the CD era, you had that CD book to go through where you actually had a physical representation of that music. You knew that music based on those things, and you knew that artist based on those things. Marvin Gaye died before I was born, or right around the time I was born. But
Forward a little bit.
that's Teddy Pendergrass. That's collection to go through, really. You have those people who are music people like that. But yeah, you don't have a physical library for your children to go through where they can identify Outkast. They can identify the Akumanai album cover, the AT Aliens album cover. They know Andre Big Boy. They know Cool Breeze. They know Organized Noise. They don't have the liner notes to go through either. And I think that that's something that we really miss. And
You know, I don't want to push back too much on this because I do think the actual physical representation does mean something. But I think with the streaming era, it should be the opposite, where, okay, let's say, take Kendrick Lamar for an example. Like, he came out with GNX, he came out with Not Like Us. let's say a kid is, I don't know, 15 years old. You know, he's just starting on his journey in hip hop as a young teenager. You would want to, wouldn't you want to listen to what was, you know, Good Kid, Mad City, or even Section 80 to find out, well, how good was this dude? Let me go listen to this. And again, I don't think it's the liner notes thing. I don't think it's the fact that they have a physical representation. I think maybe the effect of kids having that relationship with their parents, that music relationship with their parents, is does have an effect. But I kind of almost, I don't want to go too deep into, you know, social dynamics, but I do think single parenthood has an effect with that, where a lot of single mothers may not play, you know, the classical hip hop or rap, as opposed to they'll play music for the club. You know what I mean? They may play music that they could dance to, you know, to that their kids will listen to. And a lot of young males had to figure out hip hop on their own if they don't have a lot of consistent male figures. But I'm getting too deep on that tip. But really, streaming has had an opposite effect where all the kids care about is what have you done in a 4 to 5 year window. It's almost like it doesn't exist if it happens in 5 year window. And also turn on the social media component. Now, I want to speak to that because right now, Jay-Z's legacy to, if you're 25 or 22 and under, is this guy's part of the Illuminati. This guy runs a corrupt organization called Rock Nation, all kinds of things. You know what I mean? But and that's because of social media misinformation that just gets out there. And then you have artists like Nicki Minaj that want to push that narrative because they have a personal grievance with him, or even 50 Cent. People randomly linking him to the Diddy saga, you know? Jay-Z right now, all he's known for, if you're under 2025, is being one of the richest men in music, being a multi-billionaire, being Beyonce's husband, and for all the social media innuendo about him, that the man is Illuminati, or, you know, he's corrupt or whatever, which is all misinformation that hasn't been proven. So I do think that affects Jay's legacy because they don't associate Jay with great hip hop music, and that's a problem.
And even though we have access to it all, we don't have the education on it all. And I do think that artists being continuously active is what gets the younger audience into the depth of their catalog.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. Um, I don't think a Jay-Z album today would make a lot of younger artists go back and listen to Reasonable Doubt, but I don't know. Maybe they may check out a Magna Carta Holy Grail. Maybe they may check out a 444. I don't know. I don't know they go that deep, but I do think that a Jay-Z album now would do wonders. I'm gonna explain my why and go in depth as we go through and we get through Mike's video right here.
LL Cool J said something when he was on his media run last year. He wanted to put out new music because that was going to entice a younger fan to go back and listen to his previous catalog. They have no reason to do so otherwise. And in my personal opinion, as huge as Jay-Z is and how great his legacy is to us, the reason why kids say they think Jay's overrated and this and that is because they haven't delved into his catalog. I don't think that they're as impressed as we were being there with his catalog. And I think his inactivity musically hasn't really given them the push to say, yo, I want to go back and really study this guy.
I think it's more than that. I think it's the inactivity. I think it's the lack of interest to go back to listen to Jay-Z's older music. But I do think the social media narratives have an effect, especially if you aren't playing music that resonates with young people. If Jay-Z had, some joints with Future or some joints with Kendrick Lamar or Tyler the Creator, some of the hot young artists of today, right now, people will have something to draw on and be like, yo, that was hot what Jay-Z did. Let me go and listen to that. You know what I mean? But the inactivity goes to that. And the longer you are inactive, it's almost they just go to social media to get their information now. And now you add on top of that, you have podcast culture, which spits a whole bunch of conspiracy theories and misinformation out there. So it's almost doubly the effect that affects Jay-Z, where he's not known for his music anymore. And that's crazy. You know what I mean? So I think it's just more than the inactivity. It's a lot of other things, including social media behavior that really affects it. Literally, I put up a post in one of the other hip hop groups. This is a group with like 400,000 people in it, right? And I literally said, which hip hop icon do you dislike the most? Jay-Z and Nicki Minaj. Reason why is because Nicki Minaj has been on a social media bullying rant for over a year now, and is not really a nice person. A lot of people think she's overrated with her music, all of that. Literally, Nicki Minaj won the debate, won the poll. I want to say like 15 to 13. A lot of people just disliked Jay-Z. That was crazy. I expected Nicki Minaj to eventually win it. You know what I mean? Because Nicki Minaj has a record of doing things that are bad. She has a record of being a nasty person. Jay-Z really doesn't have a record of that except all the Illuminati rumors. You know what I mean? A bogus um a bogus sexual assault charge that was basically ambulance chasing from Tony Busby and got wiped out. So Jay-Z is actually hated by younger people, which floored me, totally floored me. And I think lack of identification with his music catalog and songs that younger generation people can identify with has an effect on that.
I really want to go back and check his catalog. I've had many people come to me saying, young people come to me saying that current efforts from some of our legacy acts is what actually got them into our legacy acts and made them go back. We just saw that with Clips. I'm sure Clips have really put a whole new generation on to Hell Hath No Fury. You know what I mean? And look, I don't know what a Jay-Z album looks like in 2025. And I know many people feel like Jay-Z is above putting out hip hop music for whatever reason. And I've always disagreed with that. I don't think anybody's bigger than the music. Y'all know how big of a Michael Jackson fan I am. Michael Jackson's not even bigger than the music. So I think that there's always something to be able to give when you are a musician. Jay-Z is a lot of things, and he's extremely gifted at a lot of things. But what he is first, he is a artist first. He is a musician first. He is an MC and a lyricist first. Just
And now I want to segue into the next part of this is if you ask me, I think now is the time for a Jay-Z comeback. Um, I'm gonna get into the Jay-Z Wash debate that I had because it happened over the Clips album, but I think legacy hip hop is real. And believe it or not, I think Nas was the one that really made legacy hip hop a thing now. Nas coming back with the King's Disease series, winning a Grammy, in 2020, and getting critical acclaim all over the place. Him featuring with artists like an A Boogie with the Hoodie, like a Fabio Foreign, like a Don Tolliver, that identify with younger fans. a Big Sean. You know what I mean? And at the same time, doing records with like an EPMD that's from his previous generation and his peer Eminem. I think this is the reason why Nas to me is the GOAT, because he brought back the game for 40 and 50-year-olds to be relevant again in hip hop. That's why the whole Jim Jones thing was a total joke. And Jim's actually the opposite of what Nas is doing. And see, now that you see over 50 acts like the Clips coming back, Rakim is coming back with an album now. He's damn near 60. You know what I mean? Raekwon has a strong project. You know, Slick Rick just came with a project. Like, now is the time, if you're a legacy act, because legacy hip hop is real. I think Clips doing almost 120,000 in 1 week off an independent album is huge for an over 50 hip hop act. And I think it's because there's a market now for legacy hip hop acts, because and you're going to see a lot of artists come back. LL Cool J did come back last year. Then the album with Q-Tip, another legacy hip hop legend, who are both in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But the reason being is because one, Nas, and I think two, I think Kendrick winning the battle brought the focus back on lyrics, back on lyrical hip hop. I think Kendrick Lamar now brought some of the older hip hop fans that kind of tuned it out and said, we're tired of this sing-songy trap hip hop. We're tired of ratchet female hip hop and see females disrespect themselves all over the place, you know, talking about their coochie or whatever. You know, we're talking tired about mumble rap. The drill hip hop era has died out. You know, Ice Spice's last hip hop album that just totally tanked kind of put an end to that. And drill hip hop is going back to the UK now. So drill hip hop is dead. Now is the perfect time for lyrical acts and acts that are traditional lyrical, you know, three bars, you know, three verses, bar for bar hip hop. It's time to come back now. It's the perfect time for Jay to come back. I think the Clips album was a missed opportunity. Now, what I will say about that is it was never confirmed if he finished some work for that album. You might see an Jay-Z pop up on a remix or deluxe version of Let God Sort Him Out later on. He might use some of his songs for his next album, you know. But what I will say is, before we get back to the video, what I will say is, if the rumors are true, Jay-Z is going to headline the Super Bowl this year, I think this is the time for some new hip hop from Jay-Z. Perfect time for a new album to kind of reintroduce himself to the world as, this is what I do. I am a GOAT, and in the GOAT conversation for a reason. This is why I think it's a perfect time for Jay-Z to come back with real hip hop fans coming back, lyrical hip hop coming back to the forefront, where you see artists like Tyler the Creator, Clips, and Kendrick Lamar come back to the mainstream. And also, you know, legacy acts. Legacy hip hop is real, with legacy acts actually putting out real quality work, you know, when they're in their 50s. So it shouldn't be an excuse for Jay-Z not to come out with back to the rap game.
It's like Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, maybe a lot of things. They're basketball players first. And you have that ability to be able to get on the mic and have something to say. And I know Jay has incredible wordplay. He has a brilliant mind to put these things together. I do think that it is necessary to put together an album. Now, many of you guys probably feel like he has nothing to prove, and I'm not saying it's anything to prove. This is for the love of music and to actually pull different generations into your legacy, because I feel like a lot of what we're doing right now, and we saw it with the Book of Hove during the Hip Hop 50, it's almost just telling a certain generation that, you know, this is your history. this is what you're supposed to hold high. This is who you're supposed to hold high. But you also have to give them that reason why, in my personal opinion. But I would love to see a Jay-Z album in 2025. I don't know who would produce it. I don't know what sonically it would sound like. That's the mystery of it all, too, right? That's the level of greatness and the level of digging that it would take as an artist, because to me, this would be his most difficult feat ever. Because a lot of the time, I mean, if we look at the bulk of his catalog, especially when he was on his roll and when he was running in the 90s, early 2000s, he was going on a rhythm. And when
Mhm.
you're going off rhythm and sounds have changed, times have changed, your life has changed, this is the most difficult feat ever. And I would love to see it. You know what I mean? And
Now, see, this is where I want to get into the Jay-Z is washed conversation. This is where I disagree with Mike on him on that. I don't think it's going to be a problem at all for Jay-Z. The one great thing about Jay-Z is Jay-Z was fantastic at getting the pulse of the culture. Like he knew where the wave was going before the wave was going. Even in the mid 2010s, Jay Z kind of jumped on the trap wave, where getting on features with Future, like I got the keys, 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 like, and he went on there and he crushed that shit. He made that a hit record. I don't think it's going to be a problem for Jay Z to do the same thing and to jump back in the game, head first, like he never left. And let's be real, he never really left. He's only hasn't done, feature music in only 2 years. You know what I mean? Um, like we had a debate about Jay being washed or whatever because um one of the people in the group, my homie Marcus in the group said that, the clips would wash him. Jay wouldn't be able to keep up the energy on that. And I'm like, I totally disagree with that because one, the last time he was on a verse was only 2 years ago, and he smoked two other legends, Lil Wayne and Rick Ross, on that record, on the DJ Khaled record. You know what I mean? I think that, the Clips album was a missed opportunity, but I don't think it's over. I think that you still may see Hov pop up on a verse. I think he sent, maybe he got sent the tracks maybe a little bit late or what have you, and he didn't get around to it. But I don't think it's a problem at all. Like if you want to tell me an artist is washed, you know what I'm saying? You got to give me and show me the verse that provides evidence that this artist can't rap all that good. Like Lil Wayne to me is washed. He can't make an album anymore. Kanye West to me is washed. Now I don't know if it's ghostwriters that he got or what, or if Kanye is trying to keep up with the times, but Kanye is doing a horrible job trying to keep up with the times because he, he can't do rage hip hop. Rage hip hop ain't his thing. Like he's trying to do the Playboy Carti thing. It really ain't working. You know what I mean? Um, that's washed to me. You know what I mean? Jay-Z would have to show me like he can't keep up with a young MC or a young rapper anymore. And then I'd say, all right, well, this dude lost his fastball. You know what I'm saying? I would have to see that. And even if Jay-Z came with a couple of verses, I still wouldn't say he's washed. I'd have to be like, all right, well, let's see it on an album. Maybe he just needs to get back in the swing of things and do that. But when has Jay-Z ever done that? I mean, last time he smoked his own artist on Rock Nation, Jay Electronica on his own album. You know what I mean? If Jay-Z was to put out a single today, I guarantee you that single will go number one on Billboard. I will put any money that a Jay-Z single, well, I might not say number one. It would be number 3 or number 5 on. It would be in the top 5 on Billboard easily if Jay-Z were to drop a single, his own single. So I totally disagree with the artist theory that you're going to be washed. And if you are going to be washed, you're going to have to provide me the evidence. Like if he was, really offbeat or really talking about something that nobody even cares about, that has nothing to do with a song, where his last feature, he smoked the field on. And everybody was paying attention to that verse. If not, I think it either won a Grammy or got nominated for a Grammy. Well, it was like verse of the year. And that was only a couple years ago. So you got to come harder with me as far as that the dude is washed up or what have you. And you can't give me the album shit too, because he walked off with a classic solo album. The Carters was a critical acclaimed album. I didn't care for it that much, but it was critically acclaimed. And even the Jay Electronica project got a lot of hype and praise. So it's not like you really put out a trash album. So I need more evidence, bro. That's the only thing I'll say to you. As far as being washed, you got to give me more evidence. You know what I mean? Than just, oh, he should have been on the Clips album and he got lazy. Sorry, you got to give me more evidence than that. I think I'll stop it there. I think we showed all the points and angles of it. But in summing it all up, I think now is the time for Jay-Z to come back. I totally agree with that. I think it's a time for Jay-Z to come back. It's perfect time now. The game is in transition. It's going back to, I think, more of a traditional style of hip hop. That's not to say that trap and all those other styles are going to be over. It won't. But I think you're going back to a different sound now. You're going back to more variety. I think Kendrick Lamar brought the game back after the battle with Drake, and I think a lot of people were tired of the current mainstream sound. And you got to think, you got other lyricists coming back. You got J. Cole coming back. You know what I mean? Nas and Primo is coming back. You got Freddie Gibbs is dropping in 2 days. Like, the game is coming back to its traditional form right now. And, it's moving away from that old stale mainstream hip hop. And I think you're going to see some changes in that. I'm going to talk a little bit more in the next pod about the Clips. But I think what they did doing, 119 in that week was a big move for independent hip hop and shows that people want to see traditional hip hop. But anyway, I don't know what you think. Can Jay-Z come back to the game and put out another classic album, but has his inactivity hurt who he is as an artist? Has it hurt his GOAT, greatest of all time legacy? You tell me, because it does seem like at least the younger generation has forgotten who Jay-Z and how great Jay-Z really is. So I do think he needs to put an album right now would be perfect for Jay-Z, and I'm looking forward for that. But anyway, tell me what you think. I'm going to be back with some new pods coming soon. We definitely are going to talk about Tyler's album. We're definitely going to talk about Alfredo 2 after a little bit, when it drops. 1995, check my pod out on that. I did a quick pod on 1995 in the album playlist. And I'll get back with y'all soon, all right? Peace.